I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Vice President Biden was playing a central role in overseeing U.S. policy in Ukraine and took the lead in calling on Kiev to fight rampant corruption. On May 13, 2014, after Hunter's role on the Burisma board was reported in the news, Jen Psaki, a State Department spokesperson, said that the State Department was not concerned about perceived conflicts of interest because Hunter was a private citizen. Hunter told Burisma's management and other board members that he would not be involved in any matters that were connected to the U.S. government or to his father. Kwasniewski told me, "We never discussed how the vice president can help us. Frankly speaking, we didn't need such help." Several former officials in the Obama administration and at the State Department insisted that Hunter's role at Burisma had no effect on his father's policies in Ukraine, but said that, nevertheless, Hunter should not have taken the board seat. As the former senior White House aide put it, there was a perception that Hunter was on the loose, potentially undermining his father's message. The same aide said that Hunter should have recognized that at least some of his foreign business partners were motivated to work with him because they wanted to be able to say that they are affiliated with Biden. A former business associate said, "The appearance of a conflict of interest is good enough at this level of politics to keep you from doing things like that." In December 2015, as Joe Biden prepared to return to Ukraine, his aides braced for renewed scrutiny of Hunter's relationship with Burisma. Amos Hochstein, the Obama administration's special envoy for energy policy, raised the matter with Biden, but did not go so far as to recommend that Hunter leave the board. As Hunter recalled, his father discussed Burisma with him just once. Dad said, "I hope you know what you are doing." And I said, "I do."
Hello everyone, welcome to NeoUnrealist. Move over, Russia. The left-wing media has a new fever, and it's Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Yes, indeed. In the mad, feverish mania to lash out at U.S. President Donald Trump, this is just the latest failed narrative to emerge. And with clockwork precision, you could check the calendar by it. I mean, each week brings a fresh bout of outrage at some piece of hyperbole, broken by the same small group of media outlets, only to fall apart in the aftermath and all but forgotten when some new candidate for getting the bad orange man emerges. Russia took over 2 years to unravel, but most of the misfires since then, they've gotten progressively shorter in their lifespans. I mean, what was, take for example, the first Kavanaugh madness. That took only a couple months to unravel on the Democrats and the media. But things like Sharpiegate or Michael Cohen's congressional testimony or Jim Comey's or Corey Lewandowski, I mean, a whole host of would-be tipping points, they've come and gone with no effect other than to increase the frustration, the wailing and the gnashing of the teeth of the Democrats and their fever swamp far-left base. I mean, a lot of the time, people will say in the wake of one of these failed runs at Trump that he planned it all along. I mean, it's 4D chess. And to be fair, some or a lot of it probably is on some level. I mean, this president, maybe to a fault, he seems to enjoy trolling his detractors to no end. But sometimes, I used to think that a lot of these were overblown claims, this 4D chess stuff. But this time, this is not one of them. I mean, this UkraineGate nonsense is so perfectly orchestrated, and the result so convenient for Trump on multiple levels. How could it be anything but 4D chess? Look at the circumstances of this and tell me how this isn't too cute by half. On August 12, 2019, a still unnamed so-called whistleblower, I say so-called because the use of the term is a joke. I mean, since the advent of this latest kerfuffle, it's become known that this so-called whistleblower is an employee of the U.S. intelligence community who filed a complaint about a phone call that President Trump had with newly elected Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, mind you, this whistleblower neither heard the phone call nor did they see any transcript or readout of the call. They heard about it, secondhand, according to the report of the General Counsel for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, who says that the so-called whistleblower heard about it from, quote, White House officials. So let me emphasize here, the whistleblower is not a witness to anything, and therefore could not even testify in a court of law on it, as anything that they had to say about the call is just hearsay. And that's it. The complaint alleged what we now know is an inaccurate concern about the call, which again, they had no direct knowledge of, and concern about the bureaucratic record keeping surrounding the call. I mean, that's it. So in order to get a free shot at President Trump, this coward deep stater, whose subsequent investigations by the office of the DNI uncovered is motivated by a political animus against Trump and in favor of a rival presidential candidate, this person files an official whistleblower complaint with Michael Atkinson, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, under the provisions of the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act. Atkinson then incredibly deems the complaint both credible and urgent as defined by the Whistleblower Act and passed it up to the acting DNI, Joseph Maguire, which, had it been a valid complaint, ordinarily would within 7 days, it would have been forwarded to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. And that deadline passed on September 2nd, and Maguire didn't forward it. Why wouldn't he do that, you might ask? It's a whistleblower complaint. The act requires it. Easy. Because this complaint had no business being filed at all. It's not about an intelligence activity. The General Counsel's report laid it out in stark and incontrovertible terms. The complaint does not arise in connection with the operation of any U.S. government intelligence activity, and the alleged misconduct does not involve any member of the intelligence community. Rather, the complaint arises out of a confidential diplomatic communication between the president and a foreign leader that the intelligence community complainant received secondhand. The question is whether such a complaint falls within the statutory definition of urgent concern that the law requires the DNI to forward to the intelligence committees. We conclude that it does not. The alleged misconduct is not an urgent concern within the meaning of the statute because it does not concern the funding, administration, or operation of an intelligence activity under the authority of the DNI. And the ID, the statute 3033 Part K 5 GI. Now that phrase includes matters relating to intelligence activities subject to the DNI's supervision, but it does not include allegations of wrongdoing arising outside of any intelligence activity or outside the intelligence community itself. So in plain English, the President of the United States of America talking on the phone to the President of Ukraine is not an intelligence activity. It doesn't involve members of the intelligence community. It does not involve any intelligence matter funded by an appropriation of Congress. The DNI has no jurisdiction over the diplomatic communication of the President and therefore cannot originate or act on complaints about him. Neither can Congress, for that matter, as a matter of Article 2 of the Constitution. They don't have they cannot oversee the president's phone calls and diplomatic dealings with another foreign leader. A complaint about a president's diplomacy with the leader of another country is completely outside the bounds of the intelligence community by law and by the Constitution. What they wound up with in the end, as they considered what the complaint really boiled down to, was, did the president solicit an improper campaign contribution, in theory, information, which is a question not for the intelligence community, as they're not a law enforcement agency. So the DNI kicked it over to the Department of Justice for review, which then went through the complaint. And ultimately, the Department of Justice, following their strictly defined protocol for reviewing campaign finance, this is how they've done it for decades, they found that this did not involve a thing of value, and therefore did not even fall under the purview of campaign finance law. In the end, what they were left with was a phone call that the president had with another world leader that some guy heard about secondhand and didn't like. Translation, nothing burger. But no, on the basis of the media reports and the frenzy surrounding this complaint, a couple days ago you witnessed the spectacle of Nancy Pelosi holding a press conference that really didn't change anything. She called it an official inquiry, but the net effect was that Jerry Nadler's House Committee just keeps doing what it's been doing for months. What that press conference actually signified was that Nancy Pelosi was waving the white flag and admitting to the world that she is Speaker of the House in name only, and holding the title in proxy for the true leader of the Democrat Party, Speaker Ocasio-Cortez. And I just can't believe Pelosi walked right into this obvious trap. She has almost nearly given Trump exactly what he wants. He wants the Democrats to vote and make this thing official to get him out of office. Politically, you only get one bite at the apple to do something like that. And, to do it with a story this thin and non-existent, it's the kind of thing that decimates a political party for the better part of a decade. So on top of that, it brings to light the obvious conflicts of interest and self-dealing of the lead candidate for president on the Democrat side, Joe Biden, and his screw-up son, Hunter Biden. Remember this guy, Hunter, he got kicked out of the Naval Reserve for being a cokehead. But, the activities of Hunter Biden in scooping up foreign cash, peddling access to his father and his name, and it's, a sitting vice president at the time this stuff was going on, and a sure bet to run for president sometime after his time in the Obama administration was over. Is there any doubt that Trump and his inner circle leaked this particular phone call to the so-called whistleblower? Because within 2 days of the story breaking, the Trump administration had on the same day, they had all the following occur simultaneously. They released the transcript of the call between Trump and Zelensky, and let me tell you, there was nothing there. When have you ever seen in the history of the United States anything like that? In a country where phone calls from the Kennedy administration are still classified, you get a declassified and unredacted memo transcribing a presidential phone call with another leader in almost real time with the evolution of the news story. It would take months for this elephantine government to declassify a parking ticket, let alone the direct communication of a current sitting president with a foreign leader. On the same day that the Office of the DNI releases the Intel Community Report showing that the so-called whistleblower is a hack with a political animus against Trump, who filed a complaint about the phone conversation he neither heard nor saw the transcript of. So, he's not even a valid witness who could provide any relevant testimony. And then, the bow on top of everything, on the same day of releasing that report and releasing the transcript of the call itself, Trump is sitting there side by side in a press conference with the guy who was on the other end of the call, Ukrainian President Zelensky, who, when asked by the media, says, hey, you read the transcript of the call. It was a normal conversation. No one pushed me to do anything.
I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me.
Come on. The transcript shows there was no quid pro quo. The man on the other end of the phone was in New York City, sitting right next to Trump, and available to answer the media's inevitable question, were you pressured? If anyone thinks that this is all cosmic happenstance, that all these things just happen to line up on the exact day after Nancy Pelosi walked right into this trap, you need your head examined. Now the media that had previously they'd shown, it's not like they showed no interest. I'm not going to bash the media on that, because they haven't dug hard, but there have been stories about Joe Biden's son Hunter I think out of the thing that he's just a screw up. And, this stuff with him and Ukraine actually has been popped up before. And the Obama administration, people's concern about it, I do remember seeing stuff in the paper about it. But, this guy's dealings with Ukraine, and worse, the naked corruption that's going on with him in China. And Joe Biden's ill-considered bragging about how he got the lead prosecutor in Ukraine fired. I mean, this benefits Trump on so many levels. You're telling me that he's lucky to just have every aspect of this line up in his favor all at the same time? Well, now that it's too late for the Democrats to climb back off this limb, I mean, they played their cards, they're stuck, they're all in. Now that the limb is breaking underneath them that they climbed down on, they've had to move the goalposts multiple times, as people have predicted. Remember when the story broke and it was evolving, it was about a promise made in the call. Well, here we are today, there's no promise. And then over the past couple of days, it morphed into, okay, there's a quid pro quo, do X or no aid for Ukraine. Well, that didn't materialize either. So now we're down to Trump implied he asked for information on a political rival as an improper campaign contribution in kind. Meanwhile, never mind that Hunter Biden, let's not forget what was going on here. I mean, this is the thing that's being glossed over. Hunter Biden was working for the most corrupt oligarch in Ukraine. The company in question he was getting $50,000 a month for, a no-show job, as a member of the figurehead board of directors. It was a company called Burisma Holdings. It's the largest natural gas company in Ukraine. Burisma Holdings is the personal property of one Mykola Zlochevsky, a Ukrainian oligarch who served in the cabinet of the pro-Russia administration of former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. Now, already, just imagine if you can, the CEO of ExxonMobil serving as the Secretary of the Interior here in the United States, but not being required to quit running ExxonMobil while he served in the cabinet. That's the equivalent of what this Zlochevsky guy was in Ukraine. Now, understand that this outfit is so shady that Mykola Zlochevsky, the guy that owns Burisma Holdings, he doesn't even own it directly. He owns a holding company through another holding company, another shell company that's headquartered in Cyprus. I mean, the shadiest island in the Mediterranean. Cyprus is to Russian and Ukrainian oligarchs what I guess the Cayman Islands would be to crooked American businessmen, or Switzerland to shady Europeans. It's the place where if you're a Russian or a Ukrainian, you hide dirty money and your crooked corporate structures and deals. So while he was in the process of preparing to flee the country back in 2014, Zlochevsky, he was under investigation in Ukraine for allegations of self-enrichment, money laundering, that kind of thing, during his term of office. He was also being looked at by the courts in the UK, in London, who they were blocking $23 million of his money in the UK. So another Ukrainian oligarch, a guy by the name of Oleksandr Onyshenko, who also fled the country, by the way, he said that Mykola Zlochevsky was paying off a guy named Kononenko to get his cases in Ukraine closed. So Zlochevsky, he needed some figureheads, some clean Western guys to burnish the image of his thoroughly rotten company, Burisma Holdings, which was just drenched in Ukrainian politics and corruption. So he brings on a president of Poland, and the son of the vice president of the United States, Hunter Biden, as non-Ukrainian board members to show that, hey, you see, how can my company be a crooked Ukrainian operation? I mean, never mind that I fled the country. The board is staffed with these nice non-Ukrainian fellows. What do they have to do with shady business dealings in Ukraine? So basically, Hunter Biden got $50,000 a month from a exiled Ukrainian oligarch, a guy on the lam, a country on the other side of the world that Biden doesn't live in, have a history in, doesn't even speak the language. I seriously doubt Hunter Biden speaks Ukrainian. And he's collecting $50,000 a month for this no-show job, lending his name to a Ukrainian oligarch who fled the country in 2014 to escape the investigations into him. Now, Biden holds this clear no-show job. The whole time the owner of the company, Zlochevsky, is in exile. He's on the land because he can't go home until he's paid off all the right people, so he knows he has no risk when if he returns, which he finally did return in 2018, only to since then have recordings of conversations between Zlochevsky and former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, implicating him in graft again. This is who was paying Hunter Biden $50,000 a month. And, you know, apparently that money was well spent because, remember, while Zlochevsky was using his money to get Ukrainian officials to close his cases, apparently the money he paid to Hunter Biden, it paid off because you heard it in the intro of the video. Hunter's dad, then Vice President Joe Biden, goes in person to Kiev over there in the Ukraine in March of 2016. You heard him. He wanted the Ukrainian Prosecutor General, Viktor Shokin, fired, or he wouldn't give Ukraine the $1 billion in promised United States taxpayer-backed loan guarantees. And wouldn't you know it, the pressure applied by Biden worked. When, in his words, how'd he put it? They fired the SOB. So the Vice President of the United States admitted in public and on camera that he used $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer-funded loan guarantees to pressure a foreign leader to fire the equivalent of the Attorney General in Ukraine, who had jurisdiction over the investigation into the company paying his son $50,000 a month to make it look legit. A quid, a pro, and a quo. Fire the Prosecutor General, or I don't give you the $1 billion you were promised. Now, the defense was that Viktor Shokin was crooked. Now, he was slow-walking the investigation into Burisma. It was a sham, and, they weren't really looking into Mykola Zlochevsky. I mean, there were protests to oust him. You know, the world wanted him gone, yada, yada, yada. Well, I'll borrow Joe Biden's line of reasoning and apply it to what actually happened. If Viktor Shokin was the problem, that we couldn't give $1 billion to Ukraine unless they got rid of this Viktor Shokin character, he was the source of everything. Why is it that after they fired the SOB, as Joe Biden so aptly put it, why then did all the cases against Burisma get dropped after he was fired? Why, after the rotten apple of Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin was dumped on the demand of then Vice President Joe Biden, why did the exiled Mykola Zlochevsky then feel it was safe enough to go back to Ukraine and all the investigations got dropped? 4D chess, people. 4D chess. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. If you want to help the channel, do me a favor. Hit like for this video. Leave a comment below. Mash down on the subscribe button if you're not already subbed to the channel. And click on the notification bell beside it. You put it on the all setting if you want to keep up with newer content. If you want to contribute directly to the channel and toss your hard-earned dollars, your hryvnias, into the tip jar, follow the links below the subscribe star or PayPal. But if you watch this on BitChute, you can just click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. You're still around, huh? I mean, wow. You listen to all that about the crooked goings-on in Ukraine and the Bidens, and you stuck through the money-grubbing capitalist portion tacked onto the end. I mean, gold star for you. I don't know how you guys do it. Thanks for watching.
They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.